All right, let's get started. Cool. So thank you for joining this lightning lesson, everybody. My name is Ben. Um, I'm a former product manager at Meta, a few other companies too, lots of early stage stuff, big tech. And over the last few years, I've run a lot of interviews, coached a lot of product manager candidates for interviews, um, and I've developed a bunch of opinions and workflows for how to prepare for interviews and set yourself up for success. I think in the current job market, that is very valuable. So that's why I'm doing this free lesson. I think a lot of people are looking for their next role, maybe been impacted by layoffs. And I think anything I can do to contribute to people's ability to find a soft landing in their next role is something that I personally find meaningful at this stage of my career. So hopefully you get a lot of value out of this talk. And what I want to do is I want to get in to some very actionable, concrete demo material around how to use AI. I think a lot of us are thinking about the role of AI in our workflows and various parts of our life. This one is going to be all about how to use AI to prepare for product sense interviews. Before we get into the content itself, I want to cover a few basic housekeeping things. So the first one is that this is going to be recorded, so don't feel pressure to take notes. Feel free to give it your full attention while we're here. The link's going to be emailed to you, I believe, 24 to 48 hours from now. So you'll have access to this after the fact, and you can even share it with other people if they weren't able to join. Um, Feel free to keep your video off. It's actually probably my preference, will be less distracting. And there's going to be a lot to cover. So I am going to be moving at my pace. Hopefully you can go back and rewatch parts of this if you didn't pick up on everything. But don't feel like you're falling behind if some of this just kind of moves a little too quickly. I just want to make sure you get the content. And I am having, I think, everyone here muted by default. So when we get to the Q&A part of this, I prefer you use the chat. Um, Nothing against any individuals, but sometimes people can get a little verbose, and I think we're gonna have like a few hundred people on this. So I just want people to, write out your questions, look at them as if you're me, make sure they're clear, and then I can answer them at the end when we get to the Q&A. Alrighty. So the agenda for this talk, we do have 30 minutes on the calendar. I think that's going to get us through everything other than the Q&A. I am happy to stick around for, I think I have another 30 minutes budgeted for Q&A. So if people want to drop questions, I'll try to get through all my content by the time this wraps up, and then we'll do Q&A. But we'll do context on just product sense interviews. Some of you might be joining, maybe are less familiar with what they are. So I'm not going to do a whole spiel on that, but I will. If you want more detail about what product sense interviews are, I would recommend checking out my recent guest post on Lenny's newsletter. I wrote very deep. It was like 20 something pages in the Google Doc draft. So you'll have plenty of context there. And then I will also email out a link to another free lecture I did a couple months ago called How to Ace Product Sense Interviews. That was not at all about AI. It was all just about the actual interviews. So I tried to email all of you that link before this. Hopefully some of you watched it. But yeah, if you're a little lost about what product sense interviews are, that gets covered in some of these other resources. And then we'll go into a little bit of context about what AI copilots are. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I think at this point, hopefully most people are familiar with what Claude and ChatGPT are. Maybe you've played with projects in Claude projects and ChatGPT projects, but that will be somewhat of a prerequisite body of knowledge that will help you contextualize some of what we're talking about. And then I'll do 3 demos. I'll do a demo that shows how you could use AI to simulate a candidate as part of your practice, then how to use AI to simulate an interviewer as part of your practice, and then how to use AI to simulate someone like me, a coach, as part of your practice. And then we'll do Q&A. Okay. Now, I do see the chat starting to have some activity in there. Feel free to talk to each other there, but I will not be able to multitask well enough to follow the discussion in the chat while I'm also presenting content here. So please just assume if you drop it in the chat, I will not see it until we get to Q&A. Okay. So product sense interviews. I've worked at Series A, B, C companies. There in that early stage, a lot of the interview process is about fit. It's about culture. It's about like, are you the right person for this exact need right now? And everyone you meet with in that interview process is probably going to be working with you on a day-to-day basis. That's the early stage. As you get later and later into, Meta, Google, those kind of companies, a lot of the people that you meet in the interview process might never work with you. They're like that might be the only time you ever meet them if you go to the company and work there for a few years after. So they're focused entirely on skill evaluation, very structured signals. And so that's generally the space that we're going to be talking about today is those big tech interviews. For product managers in particular in big tech, one of the most common, if not the most common interview that you might encounter in that later stage big tech environment are product sense interviews. I also cover analytical thinking interviews in my separate lectures and in my course, which we'll talk about at the end, but today's going to be entirely focused on product sense interviews. The types of questions you might encounter in product sense interviews are the ones highlighted here at the top of this list. So, design Uber for elderly people, product for libraries, improve Netflix. Very, very vague questions. And then if you read the Lenny post that I published, you'll see that I have a very opinionated approach for how to tackle these interviews that start with talking about the product motivation. So, what's its purpose and mission? Get into segmentation, which includes the audience, picking a target segment to focus on, then going deep on some pain points experienced by that target segment, picking one of those problems, then shifting into brainstorming and prioritizing a solution to focus on solving that problem for that segment, and then describing, if you have some time, what a V1 of that solution might look like. So as you think about that as the linear progression of what you need to be able to accomplish within, let's call it a 35-minute time box in a real interview, the key, in my opinion, after having worked with hundreds of people on getting ready for these interviews, is figuring out how to get as many reps seeing the patterns of what good answers look like, and so that you could figure out in your head how you want to present your thoughts. I have a lot of opinions about how you should present your thoughts, but I always tell people do whatever makes sense to you. You need to be comfortable presenting the content. All I can do is equip you with tools and resources to help the dots start connecting in your head and to get you to the aha moment as fast as possible. So we're going to talk today about how to use AI to tackle this workflow from a few different perspectives and get feedback, actionable feedback as you get ready for your interviews. Examples of the kinds of things that you will want to be able to do in real interviews that are covered in that Lenny post that the AI demos that we talk about today will cover are the ability to list out 3 segments and prioritize them based on things like reach and underserved degree. So this kind of thing is something you should keep in mind as we go through this. Then once you pick a segment, you want to go deep on problems. So the ability to come up with 3, I like 3. I call it the rule of 3s and 2s. So 3 broad and then scored by 2 different dimensions. Different problems along a journey for a persona that you set in that segment that you pick. And then you want to prioritize a problem based on frequency and severity. So how often does it happen? And when it happens, how much does it hurt? And then once you pick a problem, when you get to solutions, you want to be able to come up with 3 solutions and then prioritize a solution based on impact and effort. So the perfect solution, high impact, low effort. So those are the 3 kind of things that we'll see. I'll show you how to use AI to, simulate. When you think about getting ready for interviews in general, for product sense interviews, there's kind of like 3 high level options other than obviously just doing your own thing heads down, which rarely works if you just go into a cave. You kind of need some help of some kind, okay? So you could work with a coach like me. It is expensive and there's only so many hours that me and other coaches that I know have. So that's probably not a super scalable option. You have peer practice with other people who are also preparing for interviews, but you could run into false positives and false negatives. What that means is false positives is if you're doing a mock interview with someone who's not a calibrated interviewer, they might tell you that you crushed the interview, the mock, when in reality maybe you would have failed a real one because they maybe don't know what to look for. False negatives are maybe they tell you that you failed the interview because you didn't cover something, when in reality that thing might not be needed to pass the interview, and maybe you would have actually passed the real interview. So that's one of the downsides of peer practice, but it's usually free, and there's many, many people that want to do that. And then the third option that we'll talk about today is using AI copilots. I would say it's generally inexpensive in the grand scheme of things. And it gives you unlimited reps to the degree that you don't get locked out due to usage limitations in tools like Claude and ChatGPT. And it's entirely focused on content is the biggest downside. So what I mean by that is it's not focused on delivery. A big part of successful interviews is the verbal flow back and forth with the interviewer. So when you use copilots, they will help you, I think, get a lot of reps and identify a lot of patterns in content. But they will be, I think, less helpful in making sure that you're feeling confident doing what I'm doing right now, talking to you, right? So that's a little harder to do. ChatGPT does have voice mode, which you can try, but I'm a pretty big Claude fanboy, so they don't have voice mode yet. But that's where we're going to spend our time, is talking about that third option. The general workflow, if you're trying to kind of maybe fit what we're about to do in the demos into some kind of framework, like a meta framework that we talk about, is I've developed this workflow that I coach people to use with the AI Copilot. If it resonates for you, awesome. If not, sorry, I'm trying. I'm continually iterating on this stuff. But I will say that. Um, sorry, let me just get this out of the way. Okay. I will say that this framework, I think, is the best framework I've personally seen for how to use AI copilots to get ready, but through practice. So basically, the idea is that you want to start by finding questions. Okay, and the best resource for questions is one that I will share in. If someone can stop drawing on the screen, that would be helpful. I don't know if that was me. I don't think that was me. Um, but the framework would be to find a question bank. The one I like the most is Lewis Lynn's question bank, and I will link that after this conversation. Let me see if I can disable that. The okay, hope that worked. I don't know. Yeah, just stop drawing on the screen, maybe. Okay, so we have a question bank. You'll pick some questions, and then you want to tackle those questions on your own. So I will share a template that I coach people to use. Sorry, let me just stop sharing for a sec. Okay, I think that wiped it. So you want to tackle those questions on your own in a template that I provide you. And I have a very robust kind of product sense interview template. I offer that for free. Don't worry about that. And then you want to ask the AI to walk through the same exact question as if it's a candidate. So that's kind of what I recommend, is watch how it approaches and notice differences, deltas between the way that you chose to approach that question and the way that the AI approaches the question. And then you want to compare. Okay, so you want to compare what the AI does and what you did, and then you want to internalize those learnings and practice with a whole new question. That's kind of like one very powerful workflow that I've seen, and I encourage people to explore. Okay. So there's three high-level options. The one that I just walked you through for this previous slide is mostly when you're simulating, using the AI to simulate the candidate. It's probably a little less relevant when you're asking the AI to be the interviewer and the coach, but I think this one is one that I'm particularly excited about. And that's going to be the first one that we go through. So we're going to shift into demo mode now. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask Claude. Okay. So we're looking at Claude now. I'm just going to temporarily look at the chat. Can someone just say the word yes in the chat if you see Claude on my screen? Perfect. Great. Everyone can stop. Thank you. That was awesome. Okay. So we're going to go into Claude now. I'll send you a link after this talk for how to set up your Claude project if you want to have the same kind of environment that I've created here. But basically, there's project knowledge that is very long. So we're not going to have time to talk about all of that. But I've developed through many, many hours a set of instructions for this Claude project. There's a set of files. And this project can now allow me to ask a question. So I'm going to say, you're a PM at Meta, design a product for people to enjoy art. So in this case, what Claude is going to do is it's going to follow my instructions to a T, and then it's going to tell us how long it takes to speak at the average speed of a person to say each thing in a real interview, because time management is critical. So it starts by stating some assumptions. That's always the right place to start. Working on a new product initiative, focusing on the US initially with potential for global expansion, considering integration with existing Meta platforms rather than a standalone product. Yes, that sounds good. Okay, so now it's going to proceed and it's going to give me its plan for how we're going to spend our time together. If you read my Lenny post, you know all this already. This is my strong advice. So it's following that, it's telling me what it wants to do. That sounds great to me as well. Now it's going to talk to us a little bit about the product motivation. And then it's going to set a mission statement, a placeholder mission statement. So again, in my workflow, you'd have already worked through this question on your own in the template, and now you're simply wanting to see the difference between how AI is tackling that question versus how you tackled it to see if you missed anything big. So it talks about art in general, it talks about some challenges, talks about why it might be relevant to Meta and why it might be the company might be uniquely positioned, how it's aligned with Meta's mission. I will note that the mission statement in my materials is slightly outdated because Meta updated it recently. And then we have a mission statement for the art product that we would be building as part of this product sense exercise. If that all makes sense, which it does for me in this case, because I want to chug along with our demos, I say yes. And then it's going to proceed to talk about the ecosystem players that we might want to consider. People like art viewers and appreciators, artists and creators, etc. These are high-level ecosystem players. We cannot focus on all of them all at once. So we need to pick one and go deeper on them. So we're going to talk about art viewers and appreciators, largest user base, aligns with our mission of connecting people and making art accessible. Great. Yes. Let's go deep on that ecosystem player. So now it's going to come up with some segments, specific segments, 3 segments, in fact, within that ecosystem group. And it's going to craft those segments by considering things like primary motivations here. And then it's going to evaluate maybe some other factors, like content preferences, engagement frequency, art level, art knowledge level, those kind of things. So based on those, it came up with 3 segments: casual cultural explorers, social art enthusiasts, and dedicated art aficionados. Interesting that it uses these words. It has a brief description of what each of those segments represents, and it scores them based on reach and underserved degree. Once it does all of that, it makes a recommendation. So it tells you which one it would want to focus on and why. It wants to focus on social art enthusiasts. Okay. Tells you what the rationale is, and then it even sets a persona of who it might want to build for as part of this segment. So assuming we like all of that in a real interview, you might ask some clarifying questions as an interviewer, but in this case, we're going to say, yes, let's keep going. So now the AI is going to map out a user journey for that persona, and it's going to identify some key problems that the persona, in this case, Emily, might run into as part of her art appreciation journey. And then it's going to, so you can see those here. And then based on that journey, it comes up with 3 problems and then scores them based on frequency and severity. So in this case, we've got isolated discovery, shallow engagement, and disconnected sharing. And it wants to prioritize the 3rd one, gives us its rationale. And then it says it wants to proceed with brainstorming solutions. In this case, we're going to keep going and say yes. By the way, in a real interview, if you are crushing an interview, the interviewer very well might say yes, keep going every time you check in. So actually the best interviews I've ever been a part of were ones where I did barely any talking as an interviewer because the candidate was just giving me everything I needed. So this is kind of how the AI is behaving. So now it's giving us some solutions, 3 solutions. Art circles, art companion, and artistic lens. We're not going to get too deep into the details. If you want to go back and watch the content, you can watch the recording. But at the end, it picks one of those solutions, gives us its rationale, and then it will describe its V1 implementation. Yes, please. So at this point, we can certainly poke a little bit more, ask some clarifying questions if we'd like. But what's happening at a high level is that we've completed the interview at this point. Okay, we've got all the way to a solution with a V1 description with a couple risks and how we might mitigate them. Now, the way that the Copilot works that I've built is then it also proceeds to score its own performance and recap how much time it spent on things. So in this case, if you don't count any thinking time because it's AI, it spent about 18 minutes talking, quote unquote. Um, and then it's offering us to score its performance across key evaluation areas. I know that was really, really fast, and I'm sorry, but I wanted to make sure we covered an entire demo here for that one. Okay. I'm not looking at the questions yet. I'm sure that I see the chat popping a bit, but I want to transition to the second demo now. Okay. So in the second demo, we want to ask the AI so we're going to go back to our high level Claude project, and we're going to ask the AI if it can play the role of an interviewer and then ask us the question of designing a product for people to enjoy art. Okay. Now, I was originally going to do this demo fully, but I think we're running a little low on time. But the basic way you do this is you pull up the first chat thread that we had here on the left. On half of your screen, you'd pull up the new chat thread where you're simulating on the right half of your screen. And then basically you just copy and paste the content that you have from your template. So in this case, it could be this template. So I'm about to show you kind of how to use this. But if you have a template like this that you worked through the question with, you can just take the content from your template and copy and paste it in a conversational manner. So I'll just kind of show you maybe how to start that. So you're an interviewer at Meta. I'd like you to play the role of ask me as a candidate how I would build a product. How I would design a product for people to enjoy art. Okay. So we're gonna do that. That is not what I wanted. Okay, so what we're gonna do, let me just exit this for a sec. So we're gonna go back to Claude. Cool. So in this case, it's actually giving me a different response than I got yesterday, which is super interesting. But in this case, it's asking me to give it a filled out template. Okay. So that's actually going to be our third demo. So it wouldn't be an AI demo if there wasn't some unexpected non-deterministic behavior. So in this case, it's actually, oh, did I put in, you know what? I put in the wrong prompt. That's what happened. I put in the wrong prompt. There it is. Okay, cool. So it's asking me the question. So the very first thing we'd want to do, and I'm not going to go through all of this right now, but the first thing we want to do is state some assumptions. Okay, so we're going to go back to that chat. And then you'll see the AI play the role of the interviewer. And then, yeah, like walk me through your plan now. And then you could continue basically on that linear path. So this is a way of just, and you could use one of the dictation tools if you want to provide audio input into the field that turns into text. And that way you could literally talk to the AI and the AI will be the interviewer. Okay. Okay, the third demo. So the third demo is the one we accidentally started already, which was, can you play the role of a coach? Okay, so what we're gonna do in this example is I will provide you all with empty versions of this template that you could fill out as many times as you want, make as many copies as you want. And as you fill those out, when you're done, you could go and download them as PDFs. So a filled out template as a PDF, which I already have one. And then you could take that PDF and you could simply drop that into a Claude chat. And the AI will be able to parse the content of your template and basically just give you a high level overview of what the strengths are of your responses along key evaluation areas and areas of improvement in your submission. So one of the things we do in my course is people will fill out templates and I will record usually 10 to 15-minute looms reviewing their filled out templates top to bottom and provide them with personalized one-on-one feedback. That's obviously expensive for me to do from a time perspective. So I've tried to build a Copilot that can do that, 24/7 for people without me being a bottleneck. And it's trying to kind of take all the knowledge I have in my head and how I think about these things and give people feedback along those lines. So yeah, it basically, and then you could keep conversing, with the AI. So let's say there was a part of your submission that it said you didn't do as well on, or something that you were not sure about when you were filling it out. You could ask it, hey, like I was really on the fence in this section. Would this have been a better approach? And it can give you its thoughts. It might be wrong sometimes. There's obviously the baseline of hallucinations you get with these things. But I would say, there we go, get back into this. You're gonna, I think, generally get a lot better than you could without using AI Copilot to scale your practice. All right. The number one question I get from people after I show them this is, can I use this in real interviews live? Okay. And there is a bit of, I have a pretty strong opinion about this. Okay. We're all adults, do what you want. But I think there's 4 high-level reasons why I discourage using AI copilots in real live interviews while you're talking to an interviewer. Okay. The first one, very obvious, it's unethical, right? You're cheating. And I would say that that is not a good look for you. You might get away with it, but you will have to live with that. And I don't know if you want to. So I would say the first, please mute yourself if you're unmuted. I heard some noise in the background. The second reason is that your responses in an interview will be inauthentic. You're going to literally be rehashing something that AI gives you, and that is, again, not a good look for you. It's also going to hurt the fit. The goal of a job search is not to land an offer. The goal of a job search is to find a really good fit. So if you are cheating, you are being inauthentic, and therefore you're going to hurt the ability to get a good fit with an employer. Okay. Third thing, it hallucinates. You might say some really dumb things if you just use AI during real interviews and just take it verbatim and rehash it. So I would probably not do that. And then lastly, I'm saying it's not future proof. And what I mean by that is it's only a matter of time, in my opinion, until companies figure out ways to figure out whether candidates are using AI during real interviews. I don't know what that's going to look like exactly, but I just don't think it's a sustainable strategy for interviewing. So for all these reasons, I really do double, triple down on using AI for practice before interviews, not during interviews. Okay, we are at the 30-minute mark. I am now going to open the chat. You can start dropping some questions in the chat. While you do that, I'm going to take the time to shamelessly plug my Maven course for those of you who are interested in going deeper. So I have a course. The next cohort of it is kicking off on April 22nd, which is a week from yesterday. So 6 days from now. It's usually very small group discussions. I like to not have very large cohorts. And we spend a lot of time talking to each other. Super interactive. If you've ever been part of a really fun college class where there's some kind of like open-ended question that everyone gets to chime in on and discuss together, those are my favorite college classes. That's kind of how I've designed the course. So we do a group discussion about a product sense question where I call in people and we fill out the template live and I facilitate a discussion, walking you through my thinking as both a candidate and an interviewer live. Then you get a homework assignment to work through an additional question. I provide Loom feedback on your submission. And there are two office hours in the course, one for product sense, one for analytical thinking. So basically it's a 2-week course. The first part of the course is all about product sense. The second part is all about analytical thinking. And then in the office hours, we're joined by a friend of mine who's conducted hundreds of interviews across his 14 years of combined PM experience at Google and Meta. He's also an interview coach, and we provide our perspectives and answer a bunch of questions people have about the content. So it's very jam-packed. It's tight. I'd say you should probably be willing to commit about 10 hours for the course if you want to take it. And if you do want to take the course, I would use the promo code on the next slide. Before we do that, this is just a quick overview of that syllabus I talked about. You can go read some testimonials on the page. If you've never taken one of the courses on Lenny's List, which is a curated set of courses on Maven, you do get $1,395 in free credits for these tools if you've never paid for them before. So if you're a new customer of these tools, that's a great value add, and I would check those courses out on Lenny's List. Okay, there's two QR codes here now. One of them is for the course itself. So that page I just showed you, if you want to auto apply Lenny's List to get $100 off the course, you could scan that QR code. And if you want to get access to that, the Practice Copilot materials that I put, probably, if I'm being honest, somewhere in the ballpark of 40 to 50 hours of building out the Copilot. I'm simply trying to recoup some of my investment of time and energy into building a scalable solution for practicing. So you could access the Copilot from the link in that QR code. I'm going to leave this up on the screen, and I'm going to now shift my attention to the chat. Okay. Can we feed Claude the question bank ahead of time so we don't have to provide the questions ourselves? You could. I just don't know how that really helps you, because I think the demos that I showed are mainly about how to use Claude to chew on one problem at a time. And it's actually, the less Claude knows in advance what the questions are going to be, I think the more effective it is. You also can't really download Louis Lynn's question bank or copy them. He's got it kind of protected because it's got like 2,500 rows. So yeah. Do you have a similar overview of how to handle analytical thinking interviews? Yes, thank you for asking. There's a lightning lesson I did called How Do You Ace Analytical Thinking PM Interviews, which you could find on Maven. I'm happy to share a link to that too, but you could just go find it yourself. And then I don't know when, but I will likely be doing one of these lightning lessons as well on how to use AI to handle analytical thinking interviews. We do cover those in the course, though, if you're eagerly trying to get there. Dictation tools. I use Super Whisper these days. I originally used Better Dictation, which is what Tal Raviv, one of my friends, kind of recommends in his course. But yeah, there's a bunch of different tools you could use for dictation. If you don't provide the AI interviewer with perfect answers, how would it react? Try it. I would say that's always the best way to find out with AI. Just give it a shot. I would say if you do something that's like blatantly off, I think it will steer you back to like what you should be talking about. Like if you're like, hey, like how do I make pasta? Like completely irrelevant, right? It might be like, let's focus on this interview. But yeah, I think you just play with it because there's literally an infinite number of ways it might react based on an infinite number of ways that you could provide it with quote unquote imperfect answers. I wouldn't worry about perfect. I would just worry about providing the signals it needs. And again, I cover what those signals are in my Lenny's post and my lightning lesson about how to ace product sense interviews. Where can we find the recording? It will be emailed to you. Also, the page that you use to sign up for this will become a page that has the recording on it, I believe, after the recording is available. AI is a bit generous. That's a good point. Whoever said that, I do think it's, if you want to kind of tell AI to maybe be a little bit harsher, you can just tell it, hey, I'd like you to maybe increase your level of criticality or scrutiny by 10% or 20% or something like that, and just kind of tone it up until the point where you feel like it's acceptable to you. But I think it's generally not going to hallucinate, very good scores. Like I think if you really bomb, I've noticed it will give like it will give like a 2 out of 5 or a 1.5 out of 5 if I really, really bomb on purpose on one of the dimensions. Okay. Yeah, someone asked a question on how to train the AI to do really well. Unfortunately, my shameless answer to that is my practice copilot is the best way. I've figured out how to train the AI to increase the chance of you getting good responses. But you could, I saw someone else, I think, say they took my Lenny's post and they added it as context to a project knowledge. That's why I do this stuff, right? Like if I'm offering anything out there for free and you just want to figure out how to like capture it and add it to your projects as context, like that's why I'm offering all this free content. So yes, if you want to take the Lenny's post and use it as project knowledge, by all means, I will encourage that. And if anything, you could, Lenny's bot, actually, the Lenny bot is also trained on the newsletter. So theoretically, you could maybe figure out ways to use Lenny bot as well because it should be trained on my guest post. Okay. continuing to read here. Is the AI model you created free? I didn't create an AI model. It's mostly just like some project knowledge, but it's using, Sonnet 3.7 is the one that we used for this demo. Do I recommend first level segments or compound segments? Yeah, no, I recommend ecosystem players at a high level, picking an ecosystem player, then within that ecosystem player, coming up with three different segments that are mutually exclusive from each other and are factoring a couple of the two or three maybe of the primary segmentation heuristics. More on that in the Lenny's post in my talk, the lightning lesson. The prompts that I use, yeah, those, the slides had the prompts that we use to get started in each of those chats, and those prompts are going to be available in the recording if you go back and watch this. Can the Copilot tell you whether your segments are MECE? Sure, you can just ask it. So if you're using the AI to simulate a candidate, so you as the human are the interviewer, and it gives you its segments, you could ask it, hey, like help me understand whether the segments that you outlined are MECE, mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, and see what it says. Okay. It might fix its response if it feels like they're not. But generally, my advice is not to get too hung up on MECE in these interviews. I think it's much more important that you have mutually exclusive and like largely comprehensive. So if you think of collectively exhaustive. And collectively exhaustive means like if you add up all the segments, they come up to 100%. I don't think that's important in product sense interviews, and I don't think that's an expectation of something that a candidate can accomplish in a 35-minute time box. So I generally tell people come up with just like meaningful segments. Like they should be not tiny. If you come up with three niches, that's a really bad idea. But just something that has a little bit of meat on the bones. Okay. Um, The boot camp. Okay, so yes, the course does include the Copilot. So if you do take the course, if you apply Lenny's list, I think the price becomes $900, which includes the Copilot. So yeah, if you're on the fence, I think that's probably the better value overall. Yes, Tal Raviv. That's what I was talking about. Sorry, this is a very happening chat thread. I'm going to offer this course again. Yes, this will be cohort number 6, I believe, of the course. I started it last July. So far this year, I've run a cohort every month. I do think I'm probably on the verge of a price increase. So I think I might offer one more cohort at the current price, but I think I will likely need to increase the price to continue to be able to scale my time investment in the course. So if you like the current price, I'd say this cohort is probably going to be the last one, although I might do the May one at the same price. Would I change my approach if I was interviewing for a growth stage company instead of big tech? Awesome question. Depends. When I left Facebook, I joined a company called Attentive, which at the time was a Series E company. And what happens is Facebook is such a tenured company at this point. There's this large amount of company alumni that have now gone and they run product in a bunch of different companies, often earlier stage companies. And they come in and they get to decide how they evaluate PM candidates. And many companies, in this case, like Attentive, had someone who had designed the interview process who used to work at Facebook. So as a result, in order to get my job at that Series E company, which I would consider a growth stage company, I had to pass a product sense interview and an execution interview. Execution, many companies use execution or product execution interchangeably or synonymously with analytical thinking, where you have to set some kind of goal or metric. So yes, I would say if you go to that kind of like Series D and later, you're probably going to want to use the same approach. If you go into like a Series B growth stage company, I think it's going to be much more similar to like a Series A company in the sense of what I said earlier about it being more about culture fit, and kind of like chemistry with the team. And a lot of more behavioral, I'll say. You still have some behavioral interviews at big tech and late stage companies, but I will say like the more you go early stage, like Series A, it's almost like entirely about your past experiences. Like tell me about a time you had to do this, or tell me how you handled this, or tell me about a time you had to give this kind of feedback, right? Like those kind of stories and behavioral questions are going to be much more important in early stages. Um, have I used it in Copilot in voice mode? Um, no, because you can only really do voice mode in ChatGPT, and I've honestly, it's like way too time consuming to try to like use all the different AI products to do the same thing. So I really just like found what I like in Claude. I'm sure it would generally work. I mean, there's like the models are getting more and more similar, right? So if you want to use the latest OpenAI model in ChatGPT and upload the project knowledge files just like you would in Claude into ChatGPT projects instead of Claude projects, and then you want to engage in voice mode, it should generally work. I don't see why it wouldn't. This recording will be shared. Okay. Yes, if you buy the Copilot first and then you want to take the course, there will be a discount on the course. So basically, I'll just subtract the cost of the Copilot from what you pay for the course. Okay. A link to Lenny's post. Just go to Lenny's newsletter. You should be able to find it. And my post should be in one of the recent links there. Okay. Oh yeah. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Okay. I think those were all the questions. I will share the links and the resources. We have a little bit more time left, so maybe I'll hang around for another minute or two if people have additional questions. Otherwise, I'll wrap up. I'll stop sharing my screen now. Thank you for those of you who joined. Starting to see some people drop off. But yeah, this was awesome. Okay, here we go. We got some more questions. Yay. What's the preparation stage or level do you recommend to join the bootcamp? Okay, so ideal people to join the bootcamp are people who are product managers. I would say if you're looking to break into product management, it's probably not ideal unless you're already working at a big tech company like Meta and you're about to go through the PM loop for an internal transfer. That is some technical program managers do that. Product marketing managers do that. There's various kind of functions that transfer internally into product management roles. So those folks I think should join. But yeah, I would recommend definitely watching my free lectures, my free lightning lessons on how to ace product sense and analytical thinking interviews before taking the course, because those are required pre-work for the course. And then if you like my style of communicating these things, you just want more practice and more access to me, then I think the course would be a really good fit. Um, will I have this type of interview if I'm aiming to be usability or UX designer, or is this product sense interview higher level starting at PM level? This specific thing we just covered today, this exact interview type, is primarily used for product manager interviews. Because I have not gone through designer interviews myself, nor am I a calibrated interviewer on designer interviews. I can't speak to the applicability of what we talked about to those interviews, unfortunately. But anecdotally, I'm told that people find these kind of frameworks very helpful ways to just chew on problems. There's really nothing, um, like it's not like if you have a good framework for chewing on one of these problems in a product manager interview, it won't serve you in some way in another interview, but it probably will miss other critical signals they're looking for in those other interviews, like designs. Um, okay. Do you do you do any training on how to actually land the interviews, like pass the screening? So the course is designed to, I regularly hear from my students that they are passing interviews and getting offers because they took the course. So I think that is what it's designed to do. Um, yeah. And then one-on-one mocks with me are something I can't, like if you think about a 60-minute mock, it's hard for me to offer that to everyone as part of the course. It's just like is not, I don't have enough hours. So I usually just offer mocks as add-ons for additional fees if people want to do one-on-one mocks. The coupon code does not work for the Copilots. The Copilot does not have a discount on it. Sorry. Biggest things that separate good product sense answers versus great. We could spend 30 minutes or an hour just on that. I would probably point you to the Lenny post. I'm really sorry, but I spent like weeks working on that post to try to make sure and it really did cover a lot of what I have to say about this. But at a high level, It's really just about being thoughtful and very having good rationale, like really strong rationale for what you say. Um, yeah, I'm not going to open up that box right now. I think it's a bit too much. Have I seen other guides that I feel cover other types of product manager interviews as well and comprehensively as yours? This So yeah, Lewis Lin does have a very famous book. I know he recently was on Akash Gupta's podcast. I have not met Lewis Lin myself, but I am a huge fan of his question bank, and I send everyone to his question bank. I don't know if he does one-on-one mocks with people or coaches the way I do it. I also know there's someone on YouTube named Diana Yao, and I really like her videos, and I know she does one-on-one coaching with people as well. She's a big tech PM coach. And then a friend of mine named Brian Kemmler is also a PM interview coach, ex Google, ex Facebook. I'm sorry, at Meta, ex Google. And I actually don't coach leadership and drive interviews, which are behavioral interviews that are used at places like Meta, but Brian does. And Brian can shed a lot of light on the differences between Meta and Google interview processes. So I would definitely point you towards Brian Kemmler, Kemler. Brian's actually our guest that joins my lectures. Sorry, joins my the office hours in my course. Is it common to use these templates to set up in advance during interviews to fill out? Okay, so good question. I would say usually I see people making a decision to either print out the template and write into it with pencil or pen or something during real interviews. Sometimes it's easier to just slow down and think that way. But also you could have it pulled up on your screen and type into it during the real interview. Some people get worried that the interviewers might know that they're using a template, in which case I'd say pick your own adventure. But generally speaking, there's really no right answer to how to use the templates. But I created the templates and you could make copies of them and edit them and move things around. So they're entirely customizable once you make a copy and do what works for you. Um, yeah, the part about one-on-one mocks is that whoever takes my course, I offer a bundle of one-on-one mocks that people pay for separately after the course to practice what we learn in the course together. So yeah, whoever takes the course can hear more about that. And yeah, how these go in real life, what does it sound like and look like? Um, I actually share some videos for people who join the course that are recordings of real mocks. Like some of my clients have actually agreed to let me share those, and they've done well in those mocks. So you can actually see how someone manages the time properly in a recorded mock and provides answers that I think pass the interview. And actually, the main person who gave me the permission recently landed um, a very senior IC role at Meta. Um, After working with me on my coaching. And then I also offer another video of me going through these interviews with Brian interviewing me. So me as the candidate, and then my friend Brian interviewing me. So yeah, those will help you understand kind of like a little bit more about how the flow of the interview goes in a conversational setting. Yeah, I'm so sorry about the course being during work hours. That's kind of deliberate. I have a 2-year old and I have to work during work hours, so I have to do that unfortunately. But the sessions are recorded, so I have a lot of people who join the course who don't join the live sessions. They watch the recordings and then they email me questions, or they join the office hours, which are a little bit easier to swing outside sometimes. And yeah, we figure out how to make it work. I'd say if the hours are the biggest problem, I'm really sorry, but there's only so much I can do about that. And yeah, someone's asking, is this type of interview used at Microsoft? My understanding is yes. I've not worked at Microsoft, but I've worked with multiple people going through Microsoft interviews, and my understanding is that the guidance they get from recruiters at Microsoft is very similar. Um, and yes, if you buy the materials, you could take, I mean, you literally buy access to Google Docs that link you to instructions, like which you could copy and paste into either ChatGPT or Claude, and it gives you files, which you could drag and drop into the project knowledge file sections of either ChatGPT projects or Claude projects. So I like Claude, but you could take my materials and drop them into ChatGPT. You'll probably get slightly different responses because it's using a different model, but I think it should still generally work. And then the course hours are going to be, we have our live session discussions on Tuesdays. So April 22nd, next Tuesday is the first one. And then the following Tuesday, I believe um, it's the April 29th from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. So that would be 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific. I know that can be early for some folks if you're not morning people, but again, sorry, trying to make it work, hard to please everyone across the globe in different time zones. And then the office hours happen on Thursdays from, I believe it's 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern, or it might be 2 to 3 p.m. I'd have to double check, but just go to the course page that I shared if you want more information. Again, I will mail out all these links to you in the follow-up email after this. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Um, do I think project is better than a specific GPT? You know, the GPT store I think has generally been a flop, right? Some people have custom GPTs that they offer, but as far as I can tell, most people are not. Let's just say that hasn't been a banger of a product for OpenAI. I think a lot of other things OpenAI has done is way more successful than the GPT store. The other aspect of GPTs is that you don't get visibility into the source materials. Like if you want to tweak my instructions, which is something I always recommend doing. By the way, I maintain and I update my materials for the Copilot regularly, and I communicate those updates out to people over email when I update them. But the way I know how to improve the Copilot is by putting it in people's hands and getting feedback on it, and because they tweak and they iterate. And then I make updates to my instructions and I test it, and then I tell people, you know, hey, it's updated now. It should be much better on this. So it's hard for people to tinker with the Copilot if they're using a GPT that hides the source materials. Hopefully that helps. All right, thank you. This was a lot of fun, and I appreciate you joining this. If you want to follow up with me over email, my email is benerez333@gmail.com. If you have questions, I think you should probably be able to respond to my lightning lesson emails as well if you need to. And then yeah, hope to see you in the course or as you give me feedback on the Copilot. Thanks all.